Hey there, folks, and welcome back to Echoes by Box. We're the director's office. Let's go, because we all went in to the director's office. Do you know where to find the records, Liz? Uh, yes, they're in that cabinet. There. It looks like the cabinet's locked, Ricky. There's a keypad for the code. Do you remember the code, Liz? Yes, I think so. It stayed the same for years. I should definitely manage to remember it, Mr. Fox. But how do we open the candy machine if there's... How do we open the candy machine if there's no light? Messing up the voices already. It's fine. Mr. Smith's right. The power hasn't come back on this floor. My old research laboratory is on the other side of the corridor. If nothing's been touched, we should find a little emergency generator in there. Fox, can you go with Oscar? In the meantime, we'll get the circuits ready to plug in. I should be able to deal with that. Are you sure? Well, there's no choice, Fox. We can't let Oscar go off alone. I think it's best that we don't spread out over the floor. But where's Mr. Angry Stare Teacher gone? I suddenly realized that Adeline wasn't with us. Another reason not to waste any time, Fox. Let's go, Oscar. Lead the way. Oscar guided me to one of the laboratories. A layer does cover the research material, but everything seemed to be intact. I believe I have a canister of gas put away in one of the closets. Could you get the generator from the storeroom, please, Detective? Wait. Oh, don't worry, Mr. Fox. We've already established I'm not the foreman, haven't we? Several devices have been stored in the storeroom, but which one of them was the generator? Okay. Noises. Strange machine doesn't look like anything I'd seen before. Why had Oscar been working at the time of the Viracocha project? Time was of the essence. I decided not to dwell on the question. After checking it over, this machine seemed to be the right one. I tucked it under my arm and swiftly returned to the main room. Alan was holding Oscar at gunpoint with a strange weapon which looked a bit like a big syringe. And to be reasonable, Miss Lefebvre, I assure you there's been some mistake. Talk to Adeline. Adeline, calm down. Lower your weapon. No, I won't lower my weapon. You're all blind, every single one of you. You see, Morrison's making a fool of you. Even before the incident, I had my doubts about him. But if you won't take things in hand... Evelyn, Oscar can't be the foreman. He wasn't in the building during the deaths of Magnus and Pedro. I don't believe you. You're letting him dupe you. The situation was volatile, to put it mildly. I had to find a way to de-escalate things before another tragedy occurred. Really some way to play for time. Oscar, did you find the gas for the generator? Yes, it's there on my desk. Oscar jerked his chin at a 3/4 full jerry can. Here's what we're going to do, Adeline. We're about to open the records. If I show you a document which confirms your foreman's identity, will you accept that Oscar Morrison is innocent? I know I'm right. He's tricking you from the start. If that's the case, if it turns out that Mr. Morrison has indeed tricked me from the start, I'll be delighted to help you stop him. All you ask is that you wait until we've opened the records. Since I have confirmation, or not, of your suspicions, I'll be straight back. Until then, I'm counting on you to keep Mr. Morrison in your sights. Hey! Oscar, don't do anything stupid, okay? What Mr. Fox proposes seems like a reasonable request. Would you say, Miss Lefebvre? Right, but I'm warning you. Wrong move. I will eliminate you. Noted, my dear. Noted. Jerrycan under one arm and the generator under the other, I hurried to the director's office. Well, it's okay. I've got the generator. Quickly explained the situation while Ernest plugged in the power. Abel was waiting and immediately entered the access code. Oh! Well, I, the undersigned John Whiteman, found the body of mine, blah, blah, blah. Wait, released the federal government of all responsibility? And accepted my own free will to fuse in procedure with Miss Elizabeth? I'm sorry, Liz. Did all I could to hold him back. I just wanted a life. He has to be stopped. Her eyes, Liz changed into a gray-haired man. We're all stunned, trying to understand what had just happened. But before we could do anything to stop him, the foreman had launched himself at Abel's throat and had shoved him into one of the shelves. A crash of broken wood and shattered bone filled the room. Gianna, who'd got a grip of herself, threw a hard kick at the man's ribs, momentarily cutting off his breath. But with a leap, the foreman attempted to flee as Gianna drew her service weapon. Out between the elevator shaft and the sheriff, the man turned, defiant. Hands up! You won't get another warning! There was this moment of suspense as the foreman weighed up his options. The creature, tell Tiltex that it's awake. He'll know what to do. As for me, I've failed. Without hesitation, the man threw himself into the void. Gianna and I rushed to catch him. But it was too late. The man who was transforming back into Liz smashed into the remains of the elevator 4 stories below. After that, everything happened very fast. We went back to the laboratory to realize the person we were supposed to save wasn't who we thought. The decapitated body of Adeline Lefebvre lay against one of the benches. As for Oscar was gone. Only giving into uncharacteristic panic, Gianna hurried me out of the building and accompanied me to my car. Made me promise to leave town immediately to never come back. I wish I could have kept that promise. I had something with me. Something that would force me to return. Told you we were right at the end. I should have just held out for another 7 minutes, but it's fine. We'll just keep going. It's fine. We can't always perfectly predict the chapter ends, right? It's terrible noises from the other room, make it hard to concentrate. What is it behind the door that I don't want to remember? I have to keep on writing, so I keep on remembering. Jody, I have to do it for you, my love. Episode 4. Jody. Can you make up a bottle? I've been back from Greenhearth for a few months. My son had just been born. We had everything to make us happy. If it wasn't for the terrible dreams that haunted my nights. Terrible things had happened in those few days I spent in that accursed town. The worst thing had been the death of the patients. All Arthur's former patients who had perished at the foreman's hand. Innocent sacrifice at the altar of the negligence and hubris of the authorities. Most of them were simply collateral victims of forbidden experimentation which should have never taken place. The man behind the code named Tiltix had played with fire. He wasn't the one who had been burned. Excuse me. What a waste. Ricky? Yes, of course. Right away, honey. Thanks. I know things haven't been easy since Arthur's death. You know I'm here for you, don't you? You can talk to me, you know? I know. I've already told you everything I can. The rest would put you in danger. Yes, but how can I help you if I don't know what happened? I just smiled. I still had the strange bell that Arthur had concealed in the safe deposit box in Greenhearth Bank. I kept it with me all the time for want of a better option. I was sure the thing was dangerous, but I had no idea where it came from or what it was for. Even if it put a target on my back, I figured it would be totally irresponsible to get rid of it on the sly. It had to be destroyed, but how? And how long would it be before someone realized it was me who had it? It wasn't all. The foreman's last words continued to echo in my mind like a warning. The creature. It's awake. What was he talking about? What kind of threat was this creature that even a man like the foreman should have been afraid? Jody watched me, patient and concerned. There was no point worrying her. Our apartment was in the usual state of disarray for young, working parents. We just celebrated Halloween. The decorations hadn't been taken down yet. Luckily, Jackie, Jody's aunt, who lived nearby and was happy to take care of Chris at a moment's notice. I don't know how he would have managed without her. Where could that bottle be? I glanced at today's headlines. The dread of seeing what had happened in Greenhearth coming to light had faded a little with time. I guess the Bureau had managed to cover everything up thoroughly. I often thought of Gianna Walter. Hope she was okay. I agreed that it would be unwise to contact each other. The phone would probably be tapped for a good long time. Was she still the sheriff, or had she been made some scapegoat for the fiasco at the hospital? At the moment, I thought I'd probably never know. I know the phone thing is ringing there. I'm probably supposed to examine it. First, nothing over here. Phone rang, I remember picking up. It was my partner, James Giordano. Box. Hello, James. We've got a new case. There's no need to stop by the station. I'll meet you at the scene. Hey, where do I have to go? Have you got the address of the college campus? The state college? No, but it shouldn't be too hard to find. We agreed on a meeting point, traded a few remarks, and then I hung up. And the bottle. The bottle lay on the couch. I just had to wash it and warm the milk. Riley was waiting for me to give Chris this bottle. I didn't hang around. Okay. Okay, there it goes. I'm like, I know I pressed X. Here you go. Here's the bottle. Thanks. You just called. I have to go. Hey, I'll finish getting ready and I'll drop Chris off with Jackie. Can you pick him up this evening if you're not too late? Of course. Thanks. That would really help me out today. Have a good day. Kiss my wife, snatched up my keys, and set off. With finding college reception and losing myself in the maze of corridors, I finally found James. He was waiting for me in front of a dorm room. Police tape had been strung up, and my colleagues were bustling around. I joined my partner. Ah, Ricky. James. We're starting the day with some nasty business. Homicide. Has the victim been identified? Yes, one Martin Maloney, one of the students who shared this room. What happened? Bullet to the back of the head. Victim was found on his bed, still dressed. Probably never saw it coming. Day after Halloween, student parties had the reputation of being pretty wild. Edson must have come back from a party and fallen asleep immediately. Probably drunk. Drunk for sure, but maybe not just drunk. We'll know more when we get the tox report. Forensics had done what they needed to. I was able to get the body moved immediately. Still early. Most of the students aren't up yet. Thought I'd get it done fast before we start to draw a crowd. Good thinking. Neighbors didn't hear anything? Just finished questioning everyone, and no witnesses. Murderer shot through a cushion to muffle the noise, but with Halloween, I guess there must have been music all over the building. Pity. That's not gonna make our job any easier. Have we got a suspect? No, not yet. We've got his roommate one, Garrett Stern. Was he the one who called it in? Yes, at least. He reported the crime to the caretaker's lodge. It was them who called it in. Have you questioned them? Just quickly. I wanted to talk to the neighbors first. Giordano had made the right choice. In this type of case, sensationalist rumors start flying around pretty fast. It's better to speak to the witnesses early before you have to report so-and-so heard such and such, and everyone says that all through the deposition. Suppose he's got an alibi? He claims he was at the campus film society's Halloween party and the crime had already taken place when he got back. I see. I'll go and talk to him. Any clues? We've got the murder weapon. I got that under seal right away. That's good. That should help us. Well, they break it. Yes, but I didn't find anything suspect in the lodgings. Okay, I'll take a look. Investigate. There's the crime scene. I mean, we're already here. Crime scene was a standard campus dorm room, the kind you could find anywhere in the country. Pulled on some gloves to avoid contaminating any possible evidence and got straight to work. An obviously new laptop computer was charging on the bedroom floor. Screen was on and awaiting the password of Martin Maloney, so this was the victim's computer. And the drawers indicated the room had been searched. The murderer been looking for valuables to steal? Why would he expect to find valuables in a student's dorm room? Didn't make sense, combined with a laptop computer which had hadn't been stolen. Especially considering the crime looked more like an execution than the reaction of a robber caught in the act. If that had been the case, the victim would have taken the bullet from the front, not the back, not from the back of the head while he slept or lay unconscious on his bed. Nothing up here. Oh, these photos. Stack of Polaroids. Shots on the top of the pile looked like they'd been taken the night before, looking at the costumes of the people in the photos. I had to put them aside to study them more carefully. I had a good look around the crime scene. I just needed to have a chat with the roommate about what I found. Pile of photos? Stack of Polaroids is made up of local shots of classic student life. The most recent looked like they'd been taken the night before at a Halloween party. One of them caught my attention. The campus clock was clearly visible in the background. Did he plan to use this photo as an alibi? I decided to examine the photo more closely. Garrison had a tan mark where his watch should be. I hadn't questioned him yet, but I made a note to look out for that detail. I don't think we have anything left with James. I found some contradictory clues. I was down in the crime scene, there are some clues that don't add up. Meaning, on the one hand, the room seems to have been turned over, but on the other, the victim's computer wasn't taken. I think it's a murder disguised as a burglary. I'm rather keep an open mind at this point. I don't know, Fox. There's something shady about this business. Alright. Garrett Stern. First thing I noticed about Garrett Stern was his attitude. I didn't like it at all. Still wearing his Halloween costume when I interviewed him. Ugh. Still wearing his Halloween costume when I interviewed him, which is understandable, but under the circumstances. But what really got under my skin was his self-satisfied attitude. The arrogance of old money oozed from every pore. A type born with a silver spoon in his mouth, lucky enough not to have a huge debt to pay off when he reached the job market, but incapable of recognizing his own good fortune. Your Frankie kind of reminded me of a certain Oscar Morrison. As I suspected, he wasn't wearing a watch, and no tan mark either. He didn't know it yet, but I was a whisker away from slipping the cuffs on him. All I needed was a motive. Introduced myself with a wave of my badge. Detective Fox, I've got a few questions for you. Yes, of course, officer. I promise you have my full cooperation. This is sad business. What was your relationship with the victim? He was my best friend. What happened to him is a real tragedy. Garrett Stern didn't ring true. If Martin Maloney was really his best friend, he should have been far more affected by his death. And even without that, the violent death of his roommate should have rattled him. The fact that this wasn't the case was almost like a confession, but it wouldn't hold up in a court of law. I needed more to bust him once and for all. I keep double tapping my controller. Where were you last night? At the campus film society party. I already told your colleague that. I'm going to repeat everything I already told him. Once again, his reaction didn't add up. And when you got back, you discovered Mr. Maloney's body. Is that right? Yes, that's exactly right. Then make some notes in my notebook, which seems to exasperate him further. And do you have witnesses to confirm you were at this party? Of course! There are even photos. I see. From my gut feeling, he was hoping the Polaroids would back up his alibi. Was there something else, officer? Did Martin Maloney have any enemies? Not that I know of. You said he was your best friend. If he had enemies, you'd know about it, wouldn't you? Yes. But Martin was a brilliant student. Everyone liked him. Brilliant student. What was he working on? He was majoring in information science. Like you. Yes, like me. So you were working together? Yes, you could say that. I'm gonna miss him a lot, you know. I feel there was something worth looking into here. I decided to keep at it. What exactly were you working on? A mobile app. I can't tell you more than that without making you sign an NDA. Anyway, what's it got to do with your investigation? Let me remind you, my best friend is dead. Alright. Application? There's money at stake. That was a plausible motive. With that false alibi, I definitely had enough to get him to spill his guts. Did you check if anything had been stolen from your room? Do you think Martin was killed for that? To rob us? I mean, with Halloween, there were plenty of townies on the campus. This economy, that's so sad. My friend should lose his life over a few dollars. He leaped at the bone I'd thrown him very fast. Too fast. Once again, his behavior didn't gel with the gravity of the crime that had taken place. So what? Did you check if anything had been stolen or not? No, with what happened to poor Martin. I see. You got proof of your guilt. Of my guilt? You don't mean what you think. The application we're working on with Martin Maloney. Something tells me it was on the point of being bought out. Am I right? And he didn't want to share the profits. That's not true. We were robbed, and I've got an alibi. I was at the Halloween party. Let me guess, the so-called Halloween party where we took the photos that you so kindly left for us to see? That's right. Look at the photos. You can't prove anything. Found a photo with a clock in the background. Think of this photo in particular, the one where we can see you with your friends at the time of Martin Maloney's death? Yes. You see? It's a great shot, but it looks like you had more of a tan last year. Point at the tan mark. This time, he's got no comeback. I read him his rights and we took him down to the station. Chris is crying. Can you go and get him while you finish preparing the bottle? Months had passed. It was almost Christmas. My son's first Christmas. I tried to be there to enjoy those moments. I was having a hard time forgetting Greenhearth. And that murder case kept going through my mind. How could a young student from a wealthy family be capable of murdering his friend for the chance of a few extra dollars? We're expecting the verdict any day. Ricky. Yes? Your son? Yes, I'm going. Sorry. Ricky was amazingly patient with me. I did what I could to conceal it, to be there for her, but she was no fool. She could see something was wrong. Maybe I should have talked to her more. Would that have changed anything? Impossible to say. There's nothing interesting in the paper. Mostly usual seasonal features. Still nothing about Greenhearth. It was now almost 6 months since Arthur had died. I was finally starting to breathe easy, to tell myself I was well out of the business, and that the terrible things I'd seen in that damn town wouldn't come back to haunt me. A flyer lay on the table. Odd, I'd never seen it before. Talking about a hospital for children. A fundraiser? I made notes to talk to Jody about it. Anything else to examine before I examine the kid? Ah! It's David! David! I'm sorry, it's very creepy. It's very creepy. My son, I miss him so much. As I took him out of his stroller, he stopped crying. I don't want to remember what happened next, but I have to. For you, Jody. Jody had finished preparing the bottle. I handed it over to Chris, who immediately began to drink greedily. I have to go. Today's verdict of that case of the student, isn't it? Depends on the jury, but in theory, yes. She'll be fine. Considering the circumstances, they won't take an H this side. Till the verdict's been passed, we can't be sure of anything. Will you tell me about it tonight? Of course, honey. Do you want me to drop Chris off with Jackie? Yes, if you don't mind. I should finish early tonight. I'll pick him up when I get off. I remember going to the precinct. It was a quiet day. I did some filing. Around 4 o'clock, James came to my office. The verdict for the Maloney versus Stern case was out. Good news, Ricky. The verdict's out. Yes, Stern got 20 years. Doesn't make up for what he did. Brilliant young man lost his life because of the greed of his so-called best friend. Come on, Fox. It's a win. It's not often we congratulate ourselves on the job well done. The only thing you'll get from brooding like that is an ulcer. I wasn't wrong, but since Greenhearth, I could only ever see the glass half empty. Still, that evening, I left the office a bit more cheerful for the first time in months. What I didn't know was that the day was just about to come apart at the seams. As I stepped in the apartment, I could feel something was wrong. The living room was plunged in darkness. Chris was crying in his room. I went to get him, changed his diaper, tried my best to soothe him. But my anxiety was palpable, and he must have felt it. There was no trace of Jody in the apartment. I was thankful to see that there was no sign of a struggle either. What there was, however, clearly placed on the table was a handwritten note. I snatched it up with my trembling hand. My dear Detective Fox, I don't believe I'm mistaken in suggesting you have in your possession an object that belongs to me. It would have been good of you to have left it in Greenhearth before your hasty departure. As you can imagine, I have had a great difficulty in coming to find it. In your absence, I've taken the liberty of borrowing your dear wife, who is, incidentally, quite ravishing. If you wish to see her again in one piece, you know where to find me. Do accept, my dear friend, with my most sincere best wishes, signed Oscar Morrison, Esquire. Yes, I'm alone. A moment, it was as if my world was falling apart. The demons of Greenhearth had come to claim my soul. I had known this case would come back to haunt me sooner or later, and I'd chosen to ignore it. I put Chris's things in one suitcase, a clean suit, and my shaving bag in another, and I got in the car. It was obviously out of the question for me to take my son to Greenhearth. I had no choice but to leave Chris with Jody's aunt. She hounded me with questions, but what could I tell her? Her niece had been kidnapped. Did anything I told her would put her in danger? Leaving my son broke my heart. I planted a kiss on his forehead, praying it wouldn't be the last time I ever saw him. And I hit the road. I had no choice of catching up with Morrison, but I drove until I was exhausted and allowed myself just a few short hours of sleep on gas station parking lots. If he wanted to exchange the bell for my wife, then the quicker he got it, the quicker Jody would be safe. I had no idea what to expect when I got there. The winter sun was just rising when I finally reached the Greenhearth Dam. The forest and the town were covered by a thick blanket of snow. I headed across the great concrete structure as fast as I could. But a police roadblock awaited me at the other end. If I'd hoped to arrive unremarked, I'd failed. However, we had arrived and occupied the area, no mistake. The streets teemed with federal agents and military. Gom was a small town in the middle of nowhere I'd left a few months earlier. To introduce myself, a convoy accompanied me to the police station. Gianna Walter was in the parking lot, talking to a guy in a black suit. He turned out to be the head of operations, Special Agent William Curtis. As I got closer, I realized that they were deciding what to do with me. Fortunately, diplomacy was never the sheriff's strong suit. I suggest you give him a proper welcome, understood? Walter, do I have to remind you once again who is in charge of operations here? Real quick. Alright. Until proven apparently I never actually have it in the game. Oops. Until proven otherwise, you're in my jurisdiction. One tiny blunder, and I can promise you a pretty scathing report. Chris appeared to be furious. He nodded at me to come with him. Followed him as he muttered curses about Gianna. I didn't expect to be welcomed with garlands and flowers, but I certainly hadn't thought the town would be in such a state of crisis. Chris had requisitioned the sheriff's office. Detective Fox. When I was assigned to this case, I had half a mind to bring you back here, but Sheriff Walter assured me, quite pathetically, he'd never hear from you again. What are you doing here? My wife has been kidnapped by Oscar Morrison. Kidnapped? What are you doing in the area and with your wife? Oh, what's more? Your file says you live at the other end of the country. You don't understand. Oscar came and kidnapped my wife from our apartment about 48 hours ago. That's impossible. I've been tracking Morrison for months. This zone's locked down. A mouse couldn't get through the perimeter without me knowing about it. And yet, my wife is gone. Well, why the hell do you think Morrison could be behind your wife's disappearance? Why would he be? It doesn't make any sense. Now that I think about the cold metal of the bell in my jacket pocket, could I trust Curtis? It's too soon to say. Anyway, it'd be extremely unwise to let him know I was in possession of the object. The trouble was, Morrison's letter mentioned the bell, so I couldn't show it to him. I'd have to find another way to convince him to help me. Well, Fox, considering the seriousness of your allegations, you better have some proof. You're an investigator, aren't you? Don't you ever just get a feeling in your gut? No, I'm not an investigator or a profiler. I'm head of operations for the Federal Bureau. My decisions are based on facts and evidence, not feelings in my gut. Curtis took a deep breath. As my leg cramped up. Ah! Right, I promise you this. If it turns out that your wife has indeed been kidnapped by Morrison, as you claim, do everything in my power to get her back to you safe and sound. If I were to offer you some advice, it would be this. Pack up your stuff and go back to where you came from. Because believe me, if you try anything foolish, I'll have you behind bars. Your involvement in the events during Arthur Petrovsky's death has still not been completely clarified. I won't take the risk of you sabotaging my operation. And don't imagine Sheriff Walter can do anything to stop me. Chris was a cautious, rational guy. I couldn't hold that against him. If I wanted the Bureau's support, I had no choice. I'd have to convince him that Jody was here, being held by Oscar. But how? I'm to call in some old friends. Gianna Walter. Found Gianna in the police station kitchen area. It was strange seeing her driven out of her own office. Her misgivings had turned out to be correct. She found herself at the mercy of the feds with little scope and having to account for everything that had happened here 6 months ago. And for all that time, Oscar Morrison had been on the loose. Fox, just what the hell are you doing in Greenhearth? You don't know how much trouble I've had keeping you out of all this. Jody's been kidnapped. Jody? Your wife? Yes. It was Morrison, right? Yes, it was. Why would Morrison want you to come back? There's no point sugarcoating it. And anyway, I'd already told Gianna about the bell. The bell. Oscar wants it to exchange it for my wife. You're talking about that thing Arthur hid at Greenhearth Bank, aren't you? Yes, I took it with me when I left Greenhearth. I thought I made the right choice. I didn't know what it's for. After everything I've seen here, fairly certain it was the subject being researched by the Viracocha project. And here's a note Oscar left for me. Held out the letter to Gianna. Yes, it's pretty clear. Have you shown this note to Curtis? No, I didn't know if I could trust him. You're quite right. Curtis is a pencil pusher, and that doesn't mean he's not dangerous. So this bell, have you brought it with you? Yes. I hesitated as I was about to take it out of my pocket to show her, to give it to her, to get rid of it at last. I reconsidered as I recalled that we were in the break room and anyone could walk in at any moment. Gianna noticed my hesitation. You don't need to be afraid to talk. There's no chance we'll be disturbed at this time of day. To tell the truth, I keep it with me all the time. I'm sure that it's dangerous. I don't know how to destroy it or how to get rid of it without taking any risks. At least we got a bargaining chip to get your wife back. Are you gonna help me? Of course! Considering the risks you took to shed light on what happened to Arthur, it seems like the least I can do. We're gonna find your wife, Fox. I promise. Thank you. Have you got a plan? First thing to do is convince Curtis to help me. Didn't he believe you? No, he's convinced Oscar is trapped in Greenhearth. Problem is, now Oscar left me mention the bell, so I can't show it to him. I see. Have you seen Ernest Bull? Not yet, but I was gonna head to Golden Sky next. Good. Maybe he'll have some ideas. Anyway, I guess no one's really brought you up to speed, but if you've got any questions, I'll hesitate to ask me. Otherwise, come back and see me when you've got something new. What's the status of the inquiry into Arthur's death? The Bureau's confirmed the suicide theory, and their file's been classified. At least we know the truth. And we'll have to make do with that. They've just chosen a scapegoat. In this case, the victim himself, and they classified the case immediately, exactly like they did the first time. Arthur was prepared to do anything for the good of his patients. He didn't know he'd wake the foreman by trying to help Liz Cole. The strange bell he hit at the bank would drive him insane. You think that's what happened at the end of the day? The man I knew would never have taken his own life. As far as I'm concerned, his death is inextricably tied to that thing. I think that's the most believable explanation, too. Progress on the foreman. Well, what I'm about to tell you is obviously has been made public, but the feds have confirmed that most of the patients were killed by one John Whiteman, one of the members of the Viracocha project, who was reported missing after the incident. What does that mean, most of? Well, some of the grammar's been going a little wobbly. Well, As you know, I don't know if I was killed by Morrison during the events that took place in the old hospital, but that's not all. No? What else? Rio's gone over the crime scene to the fine-tooth comb with a far greater means than we had available during our investigation, particularly the side of Raymond Kowalski's death. They didn't find any fingerprints belonging to John Wyman or to Liz Cole, but they did leave some belonging to Oscar Morrison and some belonging to one Ettore Marjorana. Ettore Marjorana? The name struck a chord. I was sure I'd already heard it mentioned during the investigation. Yes, that name means something to you, doesn't it? Do you remember the fingerprints we found in the morgue after the fire? Everything had happened since. I had to admit I'd completely forgotten that trail, which had gone nowhere. The name of the Italian scientist who was supposed to have been dead for decades had surfaced again. Something told me we'd soon have the whole story on that. Does it mean Oscar has an accomplice? I don't know, Fox. If that is the case, it seems very unlikely that we'll have never seen them up till now. Most plausible theory, I'm surprised to hear myself say this, is that Oscar Morrison and Ettore Marjorana are sharing the same body. Like Liz and the fireman. Exactly. New development raised a bunch of new questions. I thought up till now that Liz's case was unique, but had there been other patients? I recall Pedro Fair and his dual personality. Had he two been joined with another person during the Viracocha project? Can that explain the incredible longevity of the patients? Was that what the strange bell was for? And that would, at least partly, explain Oscar Morrison's strange behavior. Have you really been trying to help me, as he claimed since the beginning? What happened to Abel and Terry? They're at Greenhearth Hospital under heavy guard. Abel Smith recovered quickly from his wounds from the foreman's attack, but since both of them refuse to take their medication while Morrison's on the loose, they're unstable. Is that it? I don't know exactly, Fox. I haven't seen them since the hospital. As you can imagine, my security clearance has been significantly downgraded due to the events. It's going to be no mean feat to get access authorization if you feel like paying a visit. Alright, Ernest Bull. Ernest was back at his post behind the reception desk at the Golden Sky Hotel. Oh my goodness, my throat. Ernest was back at his post behind the reception desk at the Golden Sky Hotel. His eyes sparkled as he watched me come into the lobby. He must be the only person in town who's happy to see me here. Oh, my dear Ricky, what a pleasure to see you again. I heard you were back. I took the liberty of preparing your usual room. But do tell me what brings you here. Surprised you don't already know. Well, of course I know. Oscar Morrison has kidnapped your wife, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, you can count on me. What can I do to help you? Quickly told him of the events that brought me back to Greenhearth. I see. So Mr. Curtis doesn't believe you, but to convince him you need to show him a letter from Oscar, but for some reason that escapes me. But for some reason it escapes me. You're unable to do that. Try. And can you show this letter to me? I don't remember. Did we ever tell him about the bell? I don't think we did. I'd rather not. Ricky, if he wants my help, you're going to have to trust me. I'm much use to you if I don't have all the information you can give me. Of course, I hadn't told him about the bell, but I realized if I wanted to have any chance of finding Jody, I had no choice but to reveal everything. Absolutely everything to Ernest Bell. Bull. I handed him the letter. I see. I suppose that this object that Oscar talks about is what was in Arthur Petrovsky's safe deposit box at Greenhearth Bank, is it? Yes. I suppose this is all connected to the experiments carried out during Viracocha project. But tell me, this object, do you still have it? Yes. Can you show it to me? Explain. I took the time to explain to him in detail everything I knew about the strange bell, but not to show it to him. I suppose that explains our friend Arthur's obsession with the bells just before he died. This goes without saying, but it's crucial that Oscar Morrison never gets his hands on this thing. Oh, trust me, I've got no wish to further Oscar Morrison's plans, whatever they might be. I really hoped I wouldn't find myself in a situation where I'd have to choose between Jody and the spell. Ernest Bull just nodded. In any case, I appreciate your candor, my friend. It does help me get a clearer picture of things. First thing to do will be to convince the Bureau of the validity of your claims. I can see only one way to do that. Oh, right. What? We'll have to go over Mr. Curtis's head. I thought Curtis was head of operations. William Curtis is just the operations manager. There's another federal agent who's been put on the case as a special consultant who can bypass the chain of command. His name is Lewis Parker. You'll find him at the diner. From what I've heard, he spends most of his day there. Thanks for your help, Ernest. I'll go and talk to him. My pleasure, my dear friend. And if you want some more information, don't hesitate to ask. Oh my goodness, I was thinking it was going to be a shorter one, but apparently not. What do you know about Oscar? I'm afraid I don't know much more than you, Ricky. He's been on the run since the tragedy at the hospital. Beth has spoken to his wife several times, but she's been refusing to cooperate. Apart from that, their searches have been fruitless. There's something I don't understand. Why did Morrison come back to Greenhearth if he managed to get outside the security perimeter? For one thing, we don't know exactly when Oscar left town. Maybe he managed to escape not long after the hospital and it took him 6 months to track you down. That's possible, yes, but in that case, why has the Bureau restricted the search to the Greenhearth area? Ah, well, that's simple, and it squares with your other question, too. Bureau thinks he's got a reason to stay here. Exactly. It all suggests that the Bureau knows about that curious bell of yours. Well, maybe not Curtis, and certainly not his underlings, but I don't think they'd have adequate clearance. But Parker, on the other hand... Yes, that's got to be why Parker was rushed out as a special consultant. In the event of failure, Curtis will take the blame. In the event of success, I'll be ready to secure the item on behalf of the Bureau. That's it. It still doesn't tell me why Morrison came back. If you want my opinion, it's just a guess. Oscar needs both the belt and to be here in Greenhearth. Phil's right. I had to prevent Morrison getting his hands on the bell, no matter what. I didn't know it yet, but the trap was closing around me. What have you found out about the foreman since I left? It may surprise you, but absolutely nothing interesting, I'm afraid. The Bureau decided to let Oscar Morrison take the rap, including for the murders committed by the foreman. Officially, the man died years ago in the fire at the hospital. I see. Anyway, that's the version I heard. Maybe Sheriff Walter could tell you more. She could. She told me about an internal memo, which said she confronted the foreman killed most of the patients. Obviously, the feds will do all they can to reveal as little as possible. I think we'll have to make do with what we already know, Ricky. What do you know about Agent Parker? Not much, I'm afraid. I've never encountered him in person. After my involvement in the events at the hospital, I was placed under house arrest. From what I've heard, he's efficient and capable, but he's long past retirement age. Do you think he could be linked to the Viracocha project? Considering the fiasco that turned out to be, I'd be surprised if the Bureau had kept hold of anyone who'd been involved in it in any way. And those who could be fired were buried here in Greenhearth. The ashes of the project, as you know only too well. What's Dr. Gianna? We got nothing. Alright, Lewis Parker, I guess. I gotta admit, pushing open the door of the little family diner gave me a strange feeling. What's even stranger was the wildlife that had invaded the setting. It was swarming with men in dark suits. I have Liz, who had loved this place so much. In the end, she'd been another collateral victim of the Viracocha project. I was just regretting not having asked for a more detailed description of Parker when a tall, thin man, his craggy face creased with deep lines, approached me. Detective Fox, I presume. That's me. I'm glad to finally meet you, Detective. As you can tell, your reputation precedes you. I believe I've heard that you're here in search of your wife. What can I do to help you? I have to convince Curtis that my wife is here. I see. Curtis is a man of reason, as you must have realized when you met him. He won't move unless you bring him proof of what you claim. Fortunately, I don't have any formal evidence. Understand your dilemma, detective. Here's what I suggest. Mr. Morrison's wife, a delightful woman, by the way, refuses to help us. Obviously, she's been under high surveillance since her husband disappeared, but I could arrange a pass for you, if you see what I'm getting at. Why do you think that might help me? The psychological profile I've drawn of Oscar Morrison strongly suggests that his family is still his main motivating factor. You think his wife's still in contact with him? I think it's a possibility. Just let me warn you. I don't think Rose Morrison's confession will be enough to get Curtis moving. You'll have to find something more substantial to offer him. Draw an address on the paper napkin. Thanks. There's something I don't understand. Why are you helping me? Parker studied me with his sharp stare, his face inscrutable for a long moment before he answered. There's something about him that made me feel deeply uncomfortable, but I couldn't define exactly what it was. Whoa, but that's obvious, detective, as you realize Curtis's efforts to ground to a halt months ago. The Bureau is to ever get their hands on Oscar Morrison. The only solution is to shake up the status quo. And if I'm to believe the incredible results from the last time you came to Greenhearth, everything suggests that you're just the man for that job. My best friend had been murdered. And you moved heaven and earth to find out what happened. I look forward to seeing what you'll do to find your wife. Parker saw me as some sort of agent of chaos. He was hoping my presence and my actions would drive Oscar into making a mistake. What can you tell me about Rose Morrison? She's an unremarkable council worker who moved to Greenhearth about 15 years ago. There's nothing significant about her life except that she married to a survivor of the Viracocha project. She's got no police record. Till you arrived, they led a quiet life with their son Nathan in a little house near the forest. According to our investigations, the Morrisons are a solid couple. Mrs. Morrison's cooperation with Curse's team has been minimal. Mainly it's consisted of her telling us that she's got no idea where her husband is, or what his plans are. At least she holds the Bureau responsible for Oscar being on the run, and she's convinced. We all know exactly what he's told her about his past, but we're led to believe she doesn't know anything about the Viracocha project. As you know, the survivor's memories of the incident only began to resurface with Arthur Petrovsky's death, and according to his psychological profile, Morrison probably chose to keep it a secret. Mr. Parker was a professional. In just a few words, he gave me a precise, detailed portrait of Rose Morrison and her relationship with Oscar. You think she talked to me? Oh, that's what I'm hoping. Thanks for the information. Alright, let's go to Rose Morrison. Lots of talking. The Morrison's home was as mundane as they come. The kind of house that lined the sidewalks for miles in residential areas all over the country. What was less mundane, however, was the police presence put there to keep watch on the surroundings. They've been waiting months for Oscar to make a mistake that had never happened. I nodded to the car station in front of the house. The two federal agents inside it nodded back, confirming that I could approach. Parker's orders had gone through them. A woman watched my approach from the doorway. She had a child through one of the first floor windows. Just as I was about to enter the garden, she came to meet me. What do you want? At a guess, I'd have to say she was about 50, but her features were so pulled by worry and fatigue that I could easily be wrong. I already told you, I don't know where my husband is. Mrs. Morrison, I'm not with the feds. I'm a friend of Dr. Petrovsky's. What do you want me to do about it? Don't talk to me about that man. I was fine until he came to town. He was trying to help Oscar. He was trying to help all his patients. I was frantically trying to figure out how to redirect the conversation. Rose seemed to realize who I was. Wait, no, you're Ricky Fox, aren't you? Yes. I'm sorry, I thought. Let's not stay here. Follow me. Waved at me to come with her. Once we were inside the house, a child of around 10 came and nestled against her, staring at me with a strange insistence as he did so. Our son, Nathan. I attempted a hello, young man, but there was no reaction from the child. Look, Mr. Fox, Oscar told me I could trust you. That's the only reason I've let you into our home. Oscar told you that? Really? Yes, it might seem odd to you, considering what happened later, but ever since you came to town 6 months ago, my husband took a liking to you. Told me he wanted to help you, and he hoped you'd help him too. That seems difficult to believe. You know, Oscar's always been an artist, an eccentric. It's a side of him that I've always found refreshing, even though it can be a little wearing on a daily basis. At the time, I didn't pay much attention. You're saying makes no sense. How do you explain to your husband? Wait, not in front of my son, please! He leaned down to talk softly to the child, and after a few minutes, Nathan finally nodded and went into the living room. Rose waited until he was absorbed in his coloring pages before she continued. He's autistic. Oscar took such care of him. Since he's been gone, it's been hard. He'd made so much progress. But you're not here about that, are you? I had my hesitation, was like, oh no, are they gonna do this badly? Okay, routine is good. And his routine has been upheaved. So, okay. Yes, I heard your wife had been kidnapped and that you think it was my husband. I understand why the police are trying to blame him for everything that happened in Greenhearth. Oscar wouldn't do any of that. And now you want me to help you catch him for crimes he didn't commit? He left me a note claiming responsibility for his actions. I showed her the letter Oscar had left. It's strange. I recognize his writing in parts, but certain words were written by someone else. I'm really worried, Mr. Fox. Mrs. Morrison, I know your husband wasn't responsible for Arthur Petrovsky's death. He's not responsible for most of the murders committed here 6 months ago. All I want is to stop him from doing something unthinkable. Help me, please. She let out a sigh. This has gone on for 6 months. It's never ending. I know you're worried about your wife, but my son needs his father too. If you can find my husband, can you remind him that he has a family who loves him and who wants him back? I'll tell him. I promise. Thank you. Ask me whatever you want. I'll answer. When did you last see Oscar? 6 months ago, a few days after what happened at the old hospital. He arrived with some radio equipment. He was very upset. Radio equipment? Had he collected from his old lab before he fled? I didn't know to ask Rose about that later, but I decided not to interrupt her. He told me he had to hide, that everyone was after him. I was very worried. For weeks I watched his mental state deteriorating, but I didn't know what to do to help him. He moved into the bunker, and a few days later he disappeared. I haven't seen him since. That's what I told the federal agents, and it's the truth. He hasn't tried to contact you. No, I haven't heard from him in 6 months. You say he came back from the hospital with radio equipment? Yes, I'm no specialist, but that's what it looked like. It was pretty old equipment, but it looked like it still worked. Did Oscar tell you what he wanted to do? Did you ask him? As I told you, he was very upset that night. He muttered something about triangulating a signal. He said it was important to Ettore. Ettore? One of his former colleagues, apparently. From before the accident at the hospital, he'd often mentioned him. In fact, since Dr. Petrovsky had arrived, he began to remember his past. You know he lost his memory after the fire at the old hospital? I nodded. It's truly remembering all that seemed to be painful for him, but I thought it was a good thing. All he needed, that it was just a rough patch and he'd be better after. When you saw that he was so upset, didn't you contact anyone? Who was I supposed to contact? The only doctor in town that just died and hadn't been replaced yet. Anyway, it was getting late. Nathan was already in bed. When he said he had to hide in the bunker, I let him. I figured it could wait till tomorrow, and then I heard about what happened at the old hospital. Poor Liz, poor Pedro, killed by my husband? It was impossible for me to believe. There'd been some mistake. And when the federal agents arrived, he'd gone. He said you've got a bunker. Yes, it's an old fallout shelter from the 1950s. It was already here when we moved in. Oscar hid down there for the first few days after he escaped. Yes, he stayed there a few days. I took him his meals. When the federal agents arrived, he just vanished without even saying goodbye. Guess he wanted to leave before they locked down the town. Haven't seen him since. This bunker, could I see it? Yes, if you want, but I don't think it'll help you. Several agents have been in and searched it, and they haven't found anything. Entrance is down at the end of the garden. Thank you. Did Oscar tell you what his plans were? Absolutely not, unfortunately. I tried asking him, but he didn't want to tell me anything. He was really agitated toward the end, even though he tried not to show it. I caught him talking to himself a few times. Do you remember what he said those times? Just fragments. He stopped as soon as he heard me. I heard him say your name several times. Last I saw him, it was as if he was the Oscar I knew again. That was when he told me I should trust you if something happened to him. Of course that worried me, but he told me everything would be fine, and I believed him. Next day, he was gone. Thanks for telling me all this. It can't be easy thinking about it at all. Rose Morrison nodded sadly. She seemed resigned. What was Oscar like before Petrovsky arrived? He was a wonderful man. He was funny, kind, considerate. And then not long after I arrived in town, we hit it off right away. He lived on a generous allowance from the government as compensation for the accident at the hospital. Gave him time to pursue his painting. I knew he had a chronic psychiatric illness, but over the years it had stabilized. After 2 years, we got married, and a year after, Nathan arrived. What else can I tell you? Oscar turned out to be an amazing father. He would have done anything for his son. After Nathan was diagnosed with ASD, he never gave up, quite the reverse. I don't know how I would have coped without him. And Arthur Petrovsky came. Yes, with him, everything just fell apart. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Search the bunker. I had no difficulty finding a door to the bunker. I got through it, inside through a trapdoor at the end of the garden, as Rose Morrison had told me. The interior is typical of these constructions, which have been built all over the country during the Cold War. A bunk bed, a table, a few cans of food on the shelves, and a sliding door which led to a Spartan washroom. I wouldn't have been surprised if all the homes in Greenhearth had one at the time when the town became the bedroom town for the employees attached to the Viracocha project. What was surprising, however, was the signs of recent occupation. Had Oscar come back to stay here when he returned to Greenhearth without letting his wife know? Examine on the shelf. Oh my gosh, this talkie is doing my throat in. My notebook. It was impossible that the feds had left this behind when they searched the bunker, so it seemed to confirm that Oscar had been back here recently. Pages and pages were covered with complex mathematical calculations which seemed to involve geographic coordinates. In any case, they seemed to be connected to the radio equipment stolen from the hospital. On the last page, the result of the equation had been circled several times with bold sweeps of pen. So it was incapable of deciphering all this and more. I had no idea who could help me understand it. The feds? This wasn't in the skill set of your regular PO agent. They hadn't already posted specialists out here, they'd have to find one double quick. Perhaps Terry or Abel would have some idea what the equipment stolen from the hospital was for. I still needed to find a way to go and see them. Here, a cell phone was left on the table. Ellery was dead, but the phone seemed up to date enough to have a GPS system. This was Oscar's phone, and he had it with him while he was on the run. Maybe I had proof that he was near my home when Jody had disappeared. If that was the case, would that information be enough to convince Curtis to help me? Though I still needed help from the feds, or rather from Parker, to unlock it to get access to the location history. Found everything Oscar had left behind after his recent occupation of the bunker. If there are older pieces of evidence, they had already been filed by the feds, but I suspect that they hadn't found anything very conclusive. When I talked with Rose and the clues left in this room, I was beginning to get a clearer picture of Morrison. Everything had led me to believe that he'd been possessed, for want of a better word, by this Ettore Margerana. Like with Liz and the foreman, maybe it had actually been Ettore who killed Adeline and stole the radio equipment at the hospital. Maybe Morrison really was trying to help me, despite the interference from the other personality, as he claimed from the start. Once again, I left the place with more questions than answers, but at least the clues I found would help me form a plan of action. The clues of the trapdoor, I thought that Jody had Oscar kept her here. There's nothing to affirm or deny the thought. All I could do was hold on to the hope that it wasn't too late, that I would find her. However, we'll do that next time. So thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the description and consider liking, commenting, or subscribing. Thank you. Thank you to players who are for the code. And until next time, Rainy MT signing out. Bye!